Hi, and welcome to Kid Inventor Friday. My name is Tina White, and I'm the director of the Northern New England Young Inventors program at the Academy of Applied Science in Concord, New Hampshire. The Academy is an educational center dedicated to promoting creativity, innovation, invention, and scientific achievement. Our Young Inventors program, or YIP, is run through schools and organizations as a project-based experience that takes students on a path to identify real-world problems and then to design and invent their own solutions and showcase them in local, national, and international competitions. In addition to this school-based curriculum, the Academy offers resources for students and educators and anyone passionate about STEM to explore ideas and to innovate. As we have all shifted to virtual learning, our most recent initiative is working with local libraries to create a series of STEM activities to complement this year's summer reading program and the Imagine Your Story theme. And we're working with other organizations to offer virtual science camps. So just like you, we have to continue to invent and innovate in order to address the needs of our community. The Young Inventors program is proud to be affiliated with Invention Convention Worldwide and the Henry Ford Museum of American Innovation. We love being able to partner with a team dedicated to inspiring young people to be inventors and entrepreneurs. Today, I'm here with my friend Arthur Zhang from Winchester, Massachusetts. Arthur is a rising junior in high school and has participated in the Young Inventors program for 3 years. Most recently, he is the inventor of Aware, a network of sensors that use artificial intelligence to make predictions about natural disasters. While I have many questions for Arthur, I know that you all do too. So I invite you to join us and ask Arthur questions by using the chat and Facebook Live to type your questions. Try to get to them as we go along. We'll be reading your questions and passing them to Arthur so that you can engage with us in this conversation. Arthur, thanks for being here today. So I'll begin with a few of my own questions as our friends at home start to share. First, I'd love to know what first inspired you to invent?
Hi, Tina. Thank you so much for having me. I think in response to that question is one of the things is that I've always liked to create things. So since I was young, I always liked to play with Legos. So in fact, if you look behind me, you see a lot of the things that I created with Legos when I was younger. But
looks like my own living room right now.
yeah,
I have a son, and Legos everywhere.
yeah. So as I grew older, I realized that with this, I could start building stuff with my own hands. And one thing that really inspired me to start inventing was that when I encountered a problem in the real world, then I could create something that would solve that on my own. And then I could also share that with other people so that when I actually create something, it has an impact on not just me in solving a problem, but it can also have an impact on other people. And that's one of the reasons why I started inventing.
Great. So I'm hoping that maybe all the Legos lying all over my house are probably a good sign that maybe my son will become an inventor too. So thanks. Legos are awesome.
Yeah.
So could you tell us a little bit about your most recent invention, Aware?
Right. So you basically summarized it almost perfectly in the introduction. Aware is an interconnected network of sensors using artificial intelligence to predict natural disasters. So Aware has 2 parts to it. So this is half of it right here. So I have a 3D printed sphere here. And inside of it, I have one module. So this part of Aware is the sensor module. So what it does is it collects data about the world around it, and then it sends it to an online server where then I can save that data, and then I can use it to either detect if something is going wrong, or I can use it to predict the chances of a natural disaster. So if you look here, this has 4 sensors on it right now. It has a temperature, a humidity, a barometer, which is a pressure sensor, and a CO2 sensor. And it's all connected to this Arduino here. So the Arduino is a platform that's really powerful, but it doesn't have any Wi-Fi capabilities. So I connected the Arduino to the Raspberry Pi down here on the second layer. And this Raspberry Pi does connect to the Wi-Fi. So basically what I'm doing here is I'm collecting all this data about the world, then I'm sending it over Wi-Fi to a server that I have at my house. There, I basically I collect all the data, store it over months and months, and then I can use that to basically train and try and predict natural disasters. And another thing that I do with it is when I detect that there's a disaster, or even in other cases where, let's say there's a fire in your home or something like that, then I actually can alert the people who live in the area. So here is the second part of Aware, which is the alarm system. So you can see on the top, there's like a buzzer here, quite loud actually, and there's a speaker here. The speaker will speak, will say something so that people know what's going on, and the buzzer will basically go off to just make sure to get everyone's attention. And inside of this is basically the same thing or very similar, where I have an Arduino up here and a Raspberry Pi, but it's connected to this so that it can give off a signal.
Great. So Arthur,
yeah.
what helped you start thinking about this problem in particular? Why this problem, or what got you interested in looking at prediction of natural disasters, both kind of on a broader scale or even just really locally, you know, using this as maybe a fire detector for a home or a neighborhood?
Yeah, I think that for me, a lot of factors came into this, but the main one that really that really sparked this invention was when I saw Hurricane Maria on the news. When I saw Hurricane Maria, it instantly reminded me of Hurricane Irene, which passed through New England a couple years ago, where I live. And I remembered how when that happened, there wasn't nearly as much warning as I would have liked. And I know that at that time, like, the power went off and I was pretty scared. So I decided that I'd do some more research into how people actually predicted natural disasters and stuff like that. And one thing that I came across was Hurricane Sandy, which was one of the worst hurricanes in history. And one thing that I found was that one of the reasons may have been that most people, when they were trying to predict the course of Hurricane Sandy, they expected it to just go, like, basically stay off the coast of the US. But as it passed New Jersey, it made a sudden unexpected turn inland, which not many people expected, and that caused a lot of damage. So because of that, I decided that I wanted to try and create something to improve the current system we have and give people more warning and basically save lives and property.
Great. Have you been able to predict anything? I know we haven't had any major hurricanes recently in the New England area, but have you been able to test the product?
So I created a version of these before I 3D printed these. I had another version of this which I put in my backyard for 1 or 2 months to collect data, and I tried using that to basically try and predict the weather, because right now I don't have enough of these modules, and we have to, like, actually predict a natural disaster, and we actually haven't had a natural disaster, so I wouldn't have been able to collect data anyways. So instead, I tried doing a proof of concept to predict the weather. The result is actually behind me here. The AI prediction is pretty accurate, but I think one thing that I may have forgotten to put in earlier that I would change if I did this again is to keep track of exactly when in the day it was, because you'll notice that here it was pretty accurate on the pre-existing data, but when I had it predict or project into the future, it became this flat line since it didn't know exactly what time and it couldn't figure out the cycles.
Okay. So Arthur, some questions are starting to come in from people who are watching around the country. And one question is, what is the invention made of? Like, for example, is it made out of plastic? Can you tell us a little bit about it? Or how you?
Of course. Yep. So right here, here's the sensor module. So whoever asked the question was correct. This is plastic. This was printed on a 3D printer using 3D CAD modeling. So I used blue plastic for this. And you can design stuff like this using like Tinkercad, and then if you have a 3D printer, you can go ahead and print this. Or if you don't, there's even stuff online that you can find. But here I printed this on my own 3D printer. So these are all made of that 3D printed plastic. And then here, all of this is also plastic and metal. So these were acrylic sheets here I actually found online, and I bought them. And they screw together with these metal pieces here. And that way I could compact the inside of it into this very compact like structure so that it could actually fit inside of it.
Great, thanks. So I know you've talked a little bit about the technology. So you used Arduino and Raspberry Pi. Do you want to tell us a little bit more about, I know the technology is a really big piece of this.
Yeah. So as I was saying earlier, this uses multiple pieces of technology. So this, I guess the general framework that this operates on, I would call it the Internet of Things, which you may have heard of. So here on top of it is the Arduino. The Arduino, as I said, it's really good at like hardware stuff. Like it can read sensors, it can turn motors, turn lights on, and all that stuff. But it doesn't have anything for Wi-Fi. But the Raspberry Pi is basically the opposite. It's really good at Wi-Fi and stuff like that, but it's not nearly as good at like controlling all this hardware stuff. So I decided I'd put them together, and that way I could read in all of this stuff and then send it to the internet, where then I can do even more cool stuff with it.
Great. Again, inventing, right? You bringing two pieces of technology together. So it looks like some more questions are coming in pretty quickly. So there's another question out there that, Arthur, what was the hardest part of this project? What were challenges you faced, and what did you find to be the hardest part of creating Aware?
I think I don't have a specific hardest part. There were a lot of challenges along the way, and I guess one thing you could say is one of the hardest parts might have been making sure to be dedicated and stay on task through the entire thing and just get the invention done. But since there were so many challenges through the way, I needed to persevere through all of that. But another thing you could say, I think one of the most challenging parts of this was designing the system, like I was just talking about, the technology behind this, in order to be able to combine the Arduino and the Raspberry Pi, and then actually set that all up, and then being able to use artificial intelligence to try and predict that.
Great. And so kind of along with that, you know, how did you overcome these challenges, and how did you manage the setbacks that you had as you were designing?
Yeah. So when I was doing this, the technology, initially I started trying the Arduino, because the Arduino was like my go-to thing if I wanted to do anything to do with circuits. So I went to the Arduino and I wired this up, and I realized that I needed Wi-Fi on this in order for it to work, because this is a network of sensors. So it's meant to be placed like in homes, out on the streets, or to be able to collect a lot of data and then create a network of this so that we basically have a map of the United States. But the Arduino doesn't really have that Wi-Fi capability. So I turned to the Raspberry Pi. I again found issues with that. And then I essentially had to take a step back. I feel like when I run into a lot of challenges, one of the things that I do is take a step back, look at it from the big picture, and see what I can do with it. So I realized that I've used both the Arduino and the Raspberry Pi, and that they both have their strengths, which actually complement each other very well. So then I researched ways on how I could combine these, and then I eventually found a way, which then I was able to create this system.
Great. And so another question coming in from a friend is, how did you manage, how long did it take you to build Aware?
I think it took me I can't give you an exact date but it's been a couple, maybe 1 or 2 years at this point. When I initially submitted it to the National Invention Convention, It took me maybe about 9 months or so. So initially, I started with coming up with an idea, and I went through all the processes. And also a large time sink for this was that I had to collect data. So I had to leave this outside for 1 to 2 months in order to collect all the data. So that also took up a large part of it.
Okay, great. And a question coming in from Zoom in the chat. Did it take additional training? What has been your additional training? I'm sure just to even learn the technology like Arduino and Raspberry Pi.
Mm-hmm. So personally, for me, in order to learn all this stuff, I just went online and looked for it by searching up stuff like Arduino and Raspberry Pi and using keywords like that. One of the things about me is that I actually really enjoy learning about new things. So every time I invent or every time I create something, it's a chance for me to learn something new. So I usually go out and basically most of the things that I try and do push boundaries. So I really enjoy learning about these things, and combining the Raspberry Pi and the Arduino was something really unique about this project that I enjoyed doing.
Great. So a little bit kind of along these lines, you've talked about kind of what the challenges were and the setbacks, and also kind of how you like to learn independently, just because that's a passion, which I feel the same way. I feel like I will always be a student. But who do you have a mentor or someone that you turn to when you're feeling stuck or when you're looking to bounce ideas or get some extra resources?
So when I feel stuck, the first people I usually turn to are my family and friends. Really, I like to go to them and then, as you said, bounce ideas off of them. I think that's one of the greatest ways for me to solve a problem, because that way I can think through my ideas, I can voice them, and I can get feedback. So if there are any holes in it, my family, my friends tell me what the holes are, and they can even give better feedback and suggestions how I can improve whatever I'm creating.
Great. And I keep seeing more and more questions. So this is great that we have people kind of wanting to talk to you. So someone also, could you just explain again, how does AWARE notify us about natural disasters?
Right. So AWARE uses this module right here, which I call the response module. So here it has a buzzer and a speaker, which these will go off whenever AWARE will detect a natural disaster or if something happens. So I actually have a manual override for this, which I'll activate momentarily, which I set up for this. And then you can see what happens when it actually goes off. So really quick before I do that, how it works is this is constantly like going to the server and saying, is there something happening? And when the server says that something's happening, or when the internet detects that something's happening, this will basically detect it, and then it'll go off. So I'm going to demonstrate that right now with a manual override.
The temperature has risen to dangerous levels. There may be a fire.
And another thing that AWARE does is that when you do this, it will actually send a notification to your phone, which you can see right here, hopefully. So that even if you don't have one of these, then you could get a notification on your phone. If you're awake, then you'll see that.
So would it tell you the difference between maybe a fire and a hurricane?
Yep. So
okay.
I think that's the main reason why I put the speaker here, because
okay.
that way, like, if something's coming, you know what to do
What
in
it
case.
is.
Because if there's a fire, you want to get out of the building. If there's
right.
a tornado, you want to stay inside. So.
Got it. Great. So a few other questions. Are there any other products like this in your research? Did you come across anything?
In my research, I'd say the most similar thing is probably the current system of meteorology stations that we have around the world right now. So I have a diagram here behind me, which shows where the meteorological stations are, and each of these will collect data once every hour. But the problem with it right now is that it's very sparse. So that means that everything in between has to be filled in by either like estimating it. And then on top of that, since I collect it only once every hour, it's not very accurate. So I wanted to improve this by a large amount by creating a large network that that way we can basically collect a lot more data, and also doing it every few seconds. So, and in terms of commercial, there's nothing really the same as this on the market right now.
So have you patented Aware?
So as of the moment, I filed a provisional patent with the U.S. Patent Office, and it's currently patent pending.
What was your process for where you are right now, but with the patent? How did you get support from anyone, or I know there's the application. What was that like?
So the patent is I didn't reach out to anyone about it. I did it myself, and it was a pretty long process. You need to like describe your invention and then give diagrams on it if you want, and then after that, I just went on the U.S. Patent Office website, and there's an option to basically submit it yourself, and I went ahead and submitted my patent there.
Good for you. So lots of initiative there. So some other questions coming in are also about kind of the marketability and your plans for Aware. So if you take this invention to commercial, and who would be your target market? Would you really be looking more as making this something that individuals have inside their homes? Or is this something that would be used on a broader scale, maybe by the government, like the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Association, or NOAA, or other meteorological types of organizations?
I'm hoping that in the future it will actually be both, because for neighborhoods, right? If there's a fire or maybe there's a gas leak is another thing that Aware could do.
Okay.
It would be good to know and warn people in the neighborhood if that happens. It would also allow them to keep track of the houses and the stuff happening around there. But I also am aiming this towards the government agencies as well, since they would be really helpful in basically spreading this around the country or the world even. And also they would have a lot more funds. And even though Aware is a lot cheaper, it's designed to be a lot cheaper than building an entirely new meteorological station. It's still at that scale. It's still going to cost a lot. So I'm also aiming it towards the government so that they can help spread this around the world.
What would you anticipate the cost of one of these being?
As of the moment, I believe it's around $100 for this unit.
Okay.
But that's because I'm using actually quite a lot of things here, since I have to purchase the Arduino and the Raspberry Pi. In the future, I plan to basically condense this into one board and have everything very compact. So I'm estimating it could go very low, maybe $20 to $50 even.
Wow. Okay. Because I feel like just, think about home alarm, like security type of alarm systems and other alert systems are probably in that same, when you say $100, that didn't scream out to me, that's ridiculous. I don't know. Yeah. But I also think, the safety of my community and of my home is certainly would be worth something like that. So again, some more questions coming in, and you kind of mentioned this a minute ago, but someone asked, could Aware detect an uncommon disaster, something that's more rare than what we think of, right? A hurricane or a fire or even a tornado, but you just mentioned something like gas leaks. And I would think that kind of falls under the category of more uncommon, or not something that we tend to think of when you hear the word natural disaster.
Yeah, I think that in the future, I would really like to be able to do that. The main thing that I would have to change in order to do that is for certain types of disasters like gas leaks, depending on the gas, I might have to add different sensors. But as a whole, if there's a disaster that relies like just on weather patterns, okay, then I'm pretty sure that if this network really spreads out, then we will be able to predict that. Since with more data, we will be able to predict like wind patterns or like whether or not something's happening. And that way we can, if there's something like that, then it should be pretty simple to predict.
Great. Another question is, what are some improvements that you want to make to Aware? Now, I know you just referred to trying to reduce the cost and maybe making it more compact, because right now you feel like it's kind of bulky. Do you have ideas in mind for where you might take this in the future?
Right. So with Aware, as I just said, making it a lot smaller and cheaper is probably my number one priority. Apart from maybe making more of these modules and spreading them out right now. But also, I think that I'm planning to add like cellular data onto this, because right now this is currently relying on Wi-Fi. And I'm also thinking about, rather than using cellular data, one thing that was actually, one idea that was mentioned to me by Dr. Arthur Zhang at MGH when I gave a presentation there, was that I could look into mesh networks, which essentially, instead of communicating with like a satellite or something like that, these would just directly communicate with each other. So that way they can send data through each other to maybe a centralized location.
Wow. I feel like there's so many opportunities and possibilities for this. That's super cool. Another great question coming in from someone watching today is, who are your idols or mentors?
I think my two idols would probably be, well, Steve Jobs was definitely one of mine. When I was younger, I looked at like a lot of things from him, his biography, and I was really sad when he passed away. But he still inspires me, like his creation of the iPhone. And I guess another thing would be Elon Musk, possibly. He's doing some amazing things right now, and I really like technology, so I'm always keeping up to date with all that stuff.
Yeah, you're doing some pretty amazing things too, Arthur. So that's great. I think you're going to become other people's idols and mentors in the not so distant future. A couple of other questions that are coming in, so I want to make sure we're able to answer them all. But what was the easiest part? So we talked about everyone always thinks about the hardest part. So I like this question about, well, what was easy about it? This may be the hardest question you get all day.
I think technically I do have an answer for this one. Earlier I mentioned when I had it sit outside for 1 to 2 months, right? I think that was the easiest part, because I could just put it outside and just have it collect data. And then I like did not have to interact with it.
Right. Okay. So you just let it ride.
Yep.
That makes sense. That's great. Some other questions are you inventing anything else right now? Do you want to reveal your secrets?
Sure. I'm currently working on an invention which I've called the third eye. Right now, what I'm planning for it to be is like a pair of glasses that you can wear, where one camera looks out into the real world, and the other looks into your eye. And these glasses are designed to basically help people with dyslexia or low vision, because for them it's hard to read text, and even for people with dyslexia, even when it's close up, it may be hard for them to read. So what I'm trying to do is essentially get the camera to figure out where you're looking at by looking at your eye and then taking a guess where that lands in the real world. Then the other camera will look at that, find the text, and if there's text there, it'll read it out directly into your ear, so that people with low vision and dyslexia can read a lot faster.
So another question out there, what is your favorite part about inventing?
I think I have two favorite parts about inventing. One of them is that I get to learn so much when I do it. As I said before, I really like learning, and every time I create an invention, it's always an opportunity for me to discover something new, and I really enjoy that part. The other thing is that when I'm inventing, there's like this feeling that I know that I can change the world with it, and I could change someone else's life or help them. And I think that that is one of the things that I find most motivating about inventing.
And another good question out there, what are your other interests outside of inventing in STEM?
Outside of STEM, I would say I played the saxophone.
Really? I didn't know that. That's awesome.
Yeah. Last year I was in the marching band at my school, And before that, I even played, in elementary school, I played the violin. In middle school, I played the trombone. I played a lot of different instruments in my past, but I feel like the saxophone is one that I like the most. And I also, I generally like music a lot, and that's one of my hobbies outside of just computer science and inventing.
Do you have a favorite like type of music that you
Um,
either like to listen to or play?
I think I like jazz to play, and when I listen to stuff, ironically, it's probably like pop music or chill stuff, something like that. Chill stuff I find really helps when I'm working. It's like background noise, so I stay more focused, but it's also not distracting. So
Right. It's funny, when I was your age long ago, I really didn't like to have any background noise or anything when I did my homework or studied. But whenever I did problem sets, either math or chemistry, physics, I always like to have a little bit of background music. So maybe I know, and I know there have been some connections in terms of the brain and how it kind of pieces things together and processes between music and math. So pretty good. I have a trait that you have too, so that's good. I'm feeling good about that. So as we kind of start to wrap up our time together, I do have a few more questions, but to share with other young inventors who are out there and with us today, why do you think invention education is important? Like, how has this had an impact on you as you've gone through, you know, even elementary school, but I've known you kind of as older middle school and high school now. What does invention mean in terms of your own education and your path?
So for me, inventing has had a really large impact on, I think, who I am today. Inventing, well, first of all, for me, it's helped me learn a lot about problem solving, because when I do invention, I run into a lot of challenges and I have to learn how to get through those and how to persevere. And I also think it helps with critical thinking, because again, on the same thread of problem solving, you need to figure out a solution and a workaround if you can't do something and if you run into a roadblock. It's also made me a lot happier because when I invent something, I know that I'm helping someone else in the world. So, and also during the process, I meet a lot of new people and a lot of good people, including you.
Thank you.
So I think that inventing is just really great, and that if someone has a chance to do it, they definitely should.
Great. So what advice would you give to a peer or a young inventor, you know, who's just starting out, or even, you know, who's been inventing for a few years, but just that encouragement? What advice do you have?
So for those who are like kind of new to inventing, I guess I would say you don't have to start big. One of the things that I like that I would recommend is to do something like find a problem around your house that you want to solve, and then create something for it. And then you can start working your way up from there. And also that when you're making an invention, just persevere through it, and no matter what people say, just go for it. And then that way, you'll basically always get to your goal.
Great. I love that advice. Arthur, thanks again for being here with me today. I've really enjoyed just getting to know you over the past few years, watching you grow and develop as an inventor, and also just as a student, and learning things about the saxophone and your favorite kind of ice cream. And to all of our young inventor friends who are with us today, you all continue to inspire me to think different and to think deeper and to solve problems so that we can work together to make our communities and our world a better place. So Arthur, I wish you the best as you continue on your path. I know that we'll be in touch and I'll follow you. And to those of you at home, I wish you all a wonderful journey as well. Thank you for your passion and your perseverance and your positivity. So at home, if you know of a friend or a sibling or anyone who's interested in participating in an invention convention or an invention program like the Young Inventors program and things that Arthur has been doing, you can learn more at Invention Convention Worldwide's website. And also, I would love for you to join us for the U.S. Nationals Award Ceremony, which will be July 2nd at 7 o'clock in the evening. That's Eastern Time. It's a Facebook Live watch party. And so you can access it from the Invention Convention Worldwide Facebook page. So again, thanks for joining us for Kid Inventor Friday, and we look forward to seeing you again. Bye.